Yo, what the fuck are we gonna do now?
Fuck you think we gonna do? We gonna smoke his ass, then we gonna start asking questions.
Wait a minute. Didn't you put the ashes in the soil before you grew the plant?
We ain't got no time for that shit, all right? We gotta grind him now. Get this on.
No. Wait. This is a motherfucking president, man. What the fuck are we doing?
You wanna stay in Harvard or what?
Whoa! I need money. Did you check him for any jewelry or money on him or anything?
Man, fuck all that, man. Listen, I'm cutting this on now.
Yay! That's right, and welcome back, guys. That's right. It's a brand new episode of The Blunt Truth Presents Sing Stones. That's right. All the usual players are right back here as we talk about another great pop culture movie in the weed. So, as you may know, you know what? And I just realized I don't always introduce myself properly. I am Scotty P, as you may know from the Geek Fathers and regular panelists on Geeks Under the Influence, the network. Check us out at GUIpodcast.com for all your just rando pop culture needs.
GUI. GUI is pretty awesome to listen to when you're stoned.
And for our... Are you done? For our stoner here with us, of course, to my left, still sleeping his way to the top, making sure all of our technical needs are handled along with his mental needs, Casey Martin.
Strikes and gutters, baby. Strikes and gutters.
Strikes and gutters.
Sometimes they're strikes and sometimes they're gutters.
And what am I?
Strike.
Spare.
And
of course,
hey, what are you fucking trying to say? I'm just
and of course, our boss, leader in this.
The baller in that one.
Yeah.
You don't have
balling?
balls.
No, but I'm a baller.
Okay, baller.
Do you wish you were a baller?
I am a baller,
Maybe a little bit
motherfucker.
taller.
Yeah. Wish you had a rabbit and a hat.
In a hat.
6 foot Impala.
That's right.
A 6 foot Impala. No.
Yeah.
That's
6'4".
okay. Maybe. Whatever. Anyways, Becky Gaskill here, our fearless leader, creator, writer, editor, director, all that has to do with the DTF.
Indeed. I'm all about the DTF.
All about the DTF.
We're all.
Which is why we know why he's on board.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Everyone around here, DTF.
DTF.
DTF, baby. So, welcome back. And on this episode, we'll be talking How High.
Indeed.
Got blunt?
Got weed?
With, I know, two of my favorites of, they kind of span genres at this point, this day and age, of Method Man and Redman.
Yeah, they do a little bit of everything now, huh?
They do.
Yeah.
And even made a special appearance in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
They did.
Oh, yeah.
With the...
Well, that was their favorite
Yeah,
movie.
that was
like, oh, it's the best DVD ever. Everybody's like, what's a DVD? And it's of How High?
Yeah. Old.
Yeah.
We are old.
Yeah.
In case you haven't realized on this show.
DVDs, man. DVDs.
It's all streaming now, but I still have plenty of DVDs. So.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We have walls. A couple
We
wall
do, yeah.
cases full of DVDs still, you know.
Right.
Our children will know DVDs by God.
Yeah, they will.
By
They don't
God.
understand how to take care of them or
No.
Oh,
any
by
of
no
that
means,
crap.
no.
They're like, oh, ninja stars. Yeah.
Well, off to an interesting start because it fits with How High because just about anything kind of goes in this movie. Because this movie was definitely off the rails from the get-go, but fun. It was a very fun movie. I'm glad that they did that, even though there are some tropes, some things in there that you're like, this day and age, you're like kind of like, but...
Yeah, you know, we're reaching back to like, you know, early 2000s and stuff. It's like, you know, we live in a much different time now and like things, you know, fortunately and or unfortunately, because I'm all about people feeling safe and included in things. Like, I'm not down for bullying. And I feel like those are the things that you really needed to address with any of this like comedy and stuff like that, and view it from the light of whether it's a bullying sort of statement or is it like a funny random generalization that everybody will get.
Which this movie
just to
actually
set up
does
thing.
touch on that a little bit as well. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very appropriate, that type of conversation.
It is a stoner movie, in my opinion. I feel like it's a stoner movie.
Yes. This one takes the stoner movie mantra as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
and this one is climbs.
Becky's just like, tell me how high.
climbs.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Climbs
yeah.
on the back of like some of the movies we talked about before, like Friday, is like taking the like just taking a different perspective, to the like. But this one is like gets silly. This one like takes that and turns the silly like way up, and so these guys are trying. These guys get scholarships because they get like really wicked, awesome scores on their college entrance exams.
But they were high as fuck.
Well, because they smoked their friend who died. They grew weed, and put their friend's ashes in it, and then grew the weed and then smoked the weed. Which that whole process happened way too fast because weed doesn't grow that fast.
Way to put the realistic spin on it.
But when they smoke his weed, he shows up as a ghost. And since he's a ghost and he's on the other side, he's hanging out with all of the other dead people. So anything that is any of these tests could be about, like this dude can find the information from the horse's mouth through history and the beyond. Okay, so this sets them up to have this advantage in school. So they they end up being like interviewed by dozens of different colleges, and they decide it was Harvard in this one.
Well, I think you're missing part of, because as much detail as you're throwing in, which is appreciated.
Yeah.
But the main fact of being in a stoner film, so let's get into stoner mode here, is that they get high as hell.
Yeah.
Smoke this weed. They both, for their reasons, need to. It's basically like SATs is what they're doing.
Wait, there's a great quote where he's like, I smoke high, I study high, I go to school high, I'm bound to get high scores.
Which is
that was one of the
logical.
lines.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, they end up like virtually perfect scores on these SAT type
Right.
testing. So they're wanted by all these colleges, and then they go through that fun montage of like the different colleges that reach out to them and these interviews. And the whole stereotypical one of the religious college that goes to interview the two black dudes that live in the hood, essentially, like the way they look at it, and they're like, no girls at our school, and they're like, nope.
Well, they were like, you get
You
a
have to
vow
take
of
a vow of
celibacy.
celibacy.
Yeah,
Celibacy.
yeah.
Like, next.
Celibacy. Yes. So that whole montage to me is like, that's to me is what really kicks off this movie, because it's about the weed, that they're getting high, the whole premise is that they're going to college, but the whole point of how they pick the college is just like, no, that's par for the course at this point, for sure. So
And he lays it out. He's like, I want to go to a lab and be able to grow like the best medicine that I could grow. And like, if you look at it through that lens, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ, these guys are like foreshadowing what's going on like in California right now. Like,
Yeah.
the more we learn
Absolutely.
about like what different strains of weed can do for you, like it can help with all kinds of like social, sort of problems.
Right.
And of course, the whole joke of that they land in Ivy League school.
Yeah.
The Ivy, the green, if you will.
Right.
Do they actually say it like it's Princeton or some like actual
Well,
They
it's
say
supposed
it's
to be Harvard.
Harvard, okay.
It wasn't Harvard. They shot it at UCLA. So,
But it was supposed to be Harvard.
it's
Yeah.
supposed to be Harvard.
Right.
And so they go in to meet the dean, and the dean is a black guy. So they're like, "Oh man, we are in. Like, fucking, come on, bro. Like, we're like, you're gonna watch our backs and stuff like that." And he's like, sort of,
Stick up the ass.
yes, huge. He
Stick up the
turned
ass.
into like a giant stick up the ass.
As I was saying, Harvard isn't for everyone.
Oh shit, we got a black man for a
See,
teacher.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yo, we
What's
straight.
up, bro?
We straight,
Holla.
dog. We straight.
As I was saying,
Trying to
And
piss
so,
us. Hey, he probably
this
been locked
position
up more times
and
than me
legacy
and your
that
ass put together.
Harvard
Get him. Oh, green Jimmy the cricket suit wearing ass motherfucker. Get him. Oh, short Colin Powell haircut having ass motherfucker.
Get him.
Little Angela Davis mustache wearing ass motherfucker.
Get him.
Little Richard Pryor shortcut fade having around the side wearing motherfucker. Little Sammy Davis Award Jr. afro haircut having ass motherfucker.
Get him.
Little Dynamite Disco Danny devastating.
Get him.
Don Cornelius with a haircut.
Gentlemen.
And like they don't explicitly say it, but it's like it's sort of supposed to be that like he came from sort of the same place as they did, and he was either like he was jealous of how free they were, or he like, you know, I don't know. I did some, you know, you go watch the behind the scenes or whatever and kind of like see what the people playing these parts were like, where they were driving their, like pulling their, you know, as they were describing their character to somebody else, being like, well, he, you know, I view him as a guy that like came from the same place as they did, and he feels threatened by these dudes coming in, and
because he worked to get to a certain
really
way
hard
of things,
to like,
yeah.
To kind of like hide that the entire time, like hide that part of him to like fit into the Harvard
But these guys
world.
are loud and proud about it because they're smoking the weed whenever they want to.
Yeah, they're hollering at
when they get into the
girls
dorm, they're basically like telling her, they're like, no, you're gonna get high with us and you're gonna party like we do. You know,
to the same kids that like were probably not looking towards that because they were going to Harvard.
Right.
So like they changed. Although it was funny with the character that was he was like, You're East Side, I'm far East Side. You know, they had the Asian
guy,
Yeah.
their roommate.
Yeah.
That was and again, like this one we had talked about a little bit on the Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle episode of where like there's some like that movie got a little bit racist. I would say this movie does more of the tropes for where people are from. I can't recall anything offhand that was just like blatantly like, yeah, you probably shouldn't say certain things, but it wasn't blatantly like racist.
Yeah, this
to an
wasn't.
extent,
This didn't have
you
the
know?
same characters as like you know, the extreme dudes in Harold and Kumar, for
Right.
example. You know what I mean? Like where it's like the dudes are being, you know,
They're making fun of Kumar. Think you'll come again, you know, and all that
they're
shit.
being
Yeah.
They're being dickbags. So, you know, there's not so much of that in here. There is like a little like, you know, they tightrope walk the, you know, racial boundaries like throughout the whole thing.
They definitely have the premier levels of, say, you know, there would be the Ivy Leaguers that are the like, oh, you cannot be on our what was it? They played
Crew.
the rowing crew.
thing.
Yeah, so they had
yeah.
the extreme rowing crew assholes, and you know,
Right.
why would
Well,
you think he would be on it? And
You still
And
have
they
to have
went
your
over the
antagonist.
It's
for
like you went
everything,
over the
so.
crew coach because you know some of these kids that get into Harvard, surprise, surprise, parents pretty much, you know, made them get into Harvard. You know, they didn't earn it in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
The money that they donate to Harvard earned them that shit, so they felt like they could walk all over the rest of the people. So like once in the story, they get the crew coach on their side by putting down that asshole and being like, fuck you, you can't tell me what to do. You've been telling everybody what to do forever. Like, they start to gain fans. They start to gain people who like want to glom on to their attitude. You know what I mean?
Almost the underdog story, if you will, where it's just like, we're not going with, for years it's been par for the course. No, we're here not to necessarily shake things up on purpose, but we're also not going to bend to the bullshit.
We're not gonna take it.
I don't think Twisted Sister had a song in this movie whatsoever.
No.
Whatsoever.
Twisted Sister
All right,
was
hold
not on the soundtrack.
I'm gonna stop all this. We haven't even decided if this is a stoner movie or not.
Oh, good
man,
call.
for real.
Just saying, like you
I'm
guys just
gonna
went all
just-
story.
For real. I
I'm going
think
to
it
jump
is.
in and say stoner movie.
I'll say it is too. I'll say it's a stoner movie. Yeah.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. I think from the get go, like from the beginning, like of this movie, they're smoking like right from the beginning of the movie. They do. That's like how they get their good grades. You know, like they smoke weed before, so the ghost shows. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like throughout the whole, and then they gas chamber, like make everybody in a whole party at Harvard get high. And they all get loose and start to have a good time and all become friends and everybody's cool except for the dean.
Right.
Axe battle.
And the funniest, because of course you have to have a love story in this, getting a little bit more into the characters as well. Lisa Turtle shows up. And if you don't know Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell, that's not her name in the movie. But that is
Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell.
Voorhees, which unfortunately this was one of the last things you really, as far as I know, you saw of her. Yeah. But it was just like, of all people, as prim and proper as she was, and she kind of had that role in the movie, but she was definitely like, oh, I could go with a bad boy.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, at first she was like,
Method Man don't look bad.
No, he's a good looking dude.
He is.
I'll
give her that.
I'll say it.
He's a good man. He's a good looking man.
So I just thought that was one of those fun, like, again, the whole age thing of that was like, oh, like almost the opposite of what some of the movies we've talked about now, because that was the last you saw of her. But most of these movies we've talked about is where a lot of people jump started.
This one, though, I can't say without, like, maybe Jeffrey Jones, where I can be like, oh, that guy, or that guy, or that guy.
Right.
This
no,
is
but
one
it
where
had
I'm
like heavy hitters, dude. It had like heavy comedy hitters like Fred Willard. It had
Fred Willard, which actually he was also in Harold and Kumar, which I forgot to mention.
That's
before.
right. Yeah.
He
Fred
played
Willard was
the dean of the medical school that
yeah.
Kumar was
Yeah.
supposed to be getting into.
Yeah, and here he's like the president of Harvard.
Right. So again, a guy, you want to talk about a guy who has range, who can do the goofy whatever, but he can work in any environment. Like that dude, Fred Willard is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say that was a beautiful touch. But they're recognizable people, to say the least, in this movie. Whether it was their start or they already had a career, this movie definitely was one of those where it's just Redman and Method Man had enough clout from wu-tang and everything to where they could do this, but unfortunately, like some projects, you never know who can be involved with it for how much. And it didn't feel like it was we have a bunch of our friends making a movie, which I think is what kind of like, I don't want to say hurt the movie, but definitely it didn't have the right flow like some of the other movies we've talked about, for sure. But it was still great, and all the actors pulled off what they did. There's a reason why they had their jobs.
Yeah,
so,
Method Man. I can say that Method Man's like career has definitely evolved over time. Like from the goofy, former rapper in a How High Stoner movie. Now he's on Stars, and he has a regular role on like on Ghost Show, and now he's considered a serious actor.
Right.
So in retrospect to seeing something like this, you're just going, oh, that guy is what? He's that guy. He has evolved as an actor. Now Redman, I can't say I can see him.
But Redman has also always done what Redman does.
Exactly.
That's been his way since the get go and stuff. But I bet you he still smokes a big old joint.
Oh, for sure.
And still does. And he's like, what? We got a wu-tang shit to do? Cool. Oh, my homies need help with this? He's got it. And that's just the way he rolls.
Sure.
So, can't see much. I know he's popped up in a couple things, but
he has.
It's usually in partnership with like Method Man or somebody else.
I've seen him do some horror films. He's done like some smaller horror films. I swear I haven't smoked any weed today. But yeah, and then, but in comparison to say Method Man, who has done some more serious roles.
Yeah, and like I said, either way, both of them, I think definitely stole the show for being what both of them their first big movies really.
It was
doing anything.
Well,
they
it's like
fucking knocked it out of the park.
These guys were from the mentality of like, man, they couldn't imagine being like in like a giant, like one of the biggest and well-known rap groups.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they couldn't have imagined that. And then on top of that, they get to like make their own movie. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then now, like what he's doing a podcast now, right?
Well, yeah, Method Man we were talking about that earlier, where Method Man is more involved with like comic creation. He does a podcast based on comics. Again, like I feel bad because I know Redman still is working on stuff, but I wasn't able to really find anything specifics. Like I think he I would assume does more behind the scenes. Like take someone like RZA. Even though he's still on the front for a lot of stuff, there's still a lot of behind the scenes work, producing and different stuff that a lot of these
RZA does a lot
these
of
two.
horror films as well.
Yeah,
RZA
for
does
sure.
a lot more horror films. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like these guys have just stopped doing anything. It's just a matter if they're in front of the camera, so to say.
Yeah, and I think Method Man is the only one that has really put himself out there as an actor and put himself in there.
More so than like RZA's acted in some stuff, but it's usually just his own stuff.
He does,
It's not
yeah.
random other things like Method Man has done.
Yeah, and I think RZA does a lot more of, say, action films and horror
Oh yeah,
films
well the
as well.
kung fu.
Yeah, the
and
kung fu and
different
stuff, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Kung fu fighting.
Now, do you guys
There you go.
think well, Casey might know this more than anything else. Do you think there is a weed out there that can make you smarter?
Make you smarter? I'm not sure smarter, but it could like there's definitely weeds out there that like if you're a person that has trouble focusing, has trouble like staying on task and that kind of thing, there are certain strains that can help like people that are hyperactive and stuff like that. If
Yeah,
they
I was
smoke
going to say
weed that
not technically
that
makes
is
you
like
smarter, but helps the chemical
helps you
balance
focus
in the brain.
like helps just balance
for
the chemical.
sure.
Because it's like it's just true that some people operate better,
Yeah.
like more empathetic, like if that's what they get from it, more focused if that's what they get for it, more distracted, because some people need a distraction because that's the way their mind works. Everybody has a different brain, everybody has a different kind of brain chemistry. So like we're just gonna have to wait now for 10 years or so before all of the studies that can be done on weed are done. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're going to figure out a way that we can have it that's hurts us less, so it's not it's not as much of a smokable thing as it is like a pill or a capsule or a gummy or whatever.
Which
And
we're already
that's-
on,
and
we're on
that's
our way
happened.
for that, though. I mean,
that's
it's definitely in that
started to happen.
progression.
And I feel like this film totally does a lot of foreshadowing in that way for that sort of movement in this country. I know a lot of people that definitely benefit from CBD, like taking CBD
Right.
to like sort of calm down, make their muscles hurt less. Like, one of my parents just got her medical card.
Yeah.
It's like it's a completely different day and age,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of interesting just seeing this through the lens of like, in California when this film was made, it wasn't
Oh,
legal
it was
like
still
it
early
is.
on in the
It wasn't
movement,
legal
so to
like
say.
it is.
Yeah.
like it is now. Dude, I guarantee
No.
these were like taboo things.
Yeah.
So, and that's the reason why I kind of like have issues with the official sequel that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the ultimate sequel from this would be bring back Method Man and Redman now.
There are talks about doing it with the third. The Method Man and Redman
See,
first third.
like call it the class reunion or
Yeah.
something from when they were first in
Mm-hmm.
college and stuff. And I
It's like the end of this, they end up wrapped up in the vice president. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Method Man's the head of the DEA, so that he's allowed to impound all of the weed that the government finds. And he's like,
Now we're getting into fan fiction here.
Oh my.
Wow. Yeah, but the sequel that is out there, to me, that was, I don't know who was involved with it. That was one of those where it was too much of a money grab, I think. And it was just like, you didn't even have the original characters coming back. You didn't,
Yeah.
I don't even know if
Boo
there's
to
any like connection to the first one, honestly.
I didn't really read too much into it. I just saw that there was a sequel and it was like
and I
possibly.
did forget about that initially,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was. But to me, that was that's the typical Hollywood money grab.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the legit sequel of this, of Method Man, Redman, bringing back those characters where they may be grown up, they may be doing certain shit, but they are still that same like type of friends
The duo.
mentality.
Yeah.
Just the typical stoner duo coming back and they just wreck shop at the class reunion or something.
Right?
Would be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So,
For
if you
sure.
guys are listening, just
We need it out there,
Throw
yeah.
us a thank you, and that's all we could ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but overall, this movie was it was probably one of the most just general fun movies. I mean, like we love all the movies that we talk about to certain degrees, Lebowski. But this one was overall where it did well. It didn't hit like very high numbers, but it's still one of the more recognizable ones for at the time because it was just a fun movie. You have two recognizable main characters, whether you know them from the music career or beyond that.
And I feel like the expectation for this movie, like if you look at this, you know, if you look at the poster, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's look. Like you're like, okay, this could be like dirty. You know what I mean? Like you could imagine it being like knowing these guys. You know, like it could be filled with F-bombs, you know what I mean? Or like, it could be slanted in a way different way than being like a silly stoner movie. Like you would imagine it'd be a comedy because they're like all chummy, you know, it's a buddy comedy, like just from looking at the poster. But you're like,
the only way you know it involves weed from the poster is just from the title.
It says hot. Hi. Hi.
All right, dear.
But you got to remember how generic posters used. I mean, look at the original Clerks poster. That doesn't give an imagination to at all what happened in that movie.
No.
And especially, again, for this time era where they, you know, if it was made now, they would totally have joints or at least some type of symbolism.
They would have like a pot leaf on it somewhere.
Like in the O of how. Like would definitely be a pot leaf instead of red. I mean, you know, the times have changed. But I still love, for back to basics, how much this movie was. Just funny. You could definitely watch it stoned. It's stoner movie, as we already talked about.
It's an easy watch. There's no weird quadruple storylines going on that you don't follow at all.
I will say, since this is from my generation, this soundtrack is fantastic.
Yes. And I would
still listen to this soundtrack today.
I would expect nothing less with Method Man and Redman in a movie anyways.
It's got this great song, but Cypress Hill's on this. Of course, the Method Man and Redman. Amazing song called How to Roll a Blunt. I mean, so good soundtrack. Such a good soundtrack.
And that's one thing, actually, we haven't touched too much on some of the other movies, but it's so many of these movies, whether because of the time that it either takes place, when it was made, or the people involved, all these movies have killer tunes to listen to.
Most of them, yes.
But you can pick and choose maybe a few songs, but like this one and a couple others definitely have that full soundtrack where you could put on the soundtrack and listen to it and get the whole thing and still be like, oh, that scene. Oh, that scene was awesome. Yeah. So overall, definitely a good movie. Like, again, it did well. I'm actually surprised how this one kind of got left in the dust in some groups. Like it's just not as recognizable as I thought it should be, or it could be. But
like you thought it should have been more more box office-y successful.
Kind of, yeah.
This was way more like, to me, this was way more of the like once it came out on Comedy Central, once it got syndicated in any sort of way.
Oh, it kind of hurt it. Almost,
well,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It made everyone aware of it, but there was this whole like tag of like, once you got syndicated, that shit was over.
If you guys think about it, this came out around the same time as this third Friday.
Right.
Okay.
So keep
kind
in
of
mind,
overshadowed.
Exactly.
Maybe. Yeah.
So if you think about that, and I was going to ask you if you think this was influenced anyway by Friday. So could this have just been, again, overshadowed in some form or fashion?
I mean, I don't think any movie after Friday any stoner movie
there's
after Friday, there's
yeah.
some influence
sure.
of Friday. I don't know whether that's my love for that movie, but you know, like I feel like it qualifies as classic, you know what I mean, in this genre. I don't know if Friday was never made, I don't think this movie would have been anything like the way it would, like.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Or
I feel like
something would have been made, but it definitely wouldn't have been.
It wouldn't have been this movie.
It was, and that's what I mean. Like this was a great movie, but again, you go back talk about Friday. where you had a crew of people who were already friends and everything. How many people did Method Man and Redman know on this movie already previously? You know, where, you know, Hollywood was still willing to make it, but how much did they have to probably fight tooth and nail just to make sure certain shit was done? You know, probably a lot harder than Friday and a few other movies that are very similar to this.
Because I feel, well, it's like Friday was like way more of an indie flick, you know,
Than this
Right.
one, yeah.
than this one was. This one was like, you know, they spent money, they had set, you know, like they, you know, all kinds, you know, whether they were like, they weren't like crazy effects, but you know, they did fucking special effects for this movie for all the ghosts and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, there's a little bit of money behind it. Like it had to have a little bit of money behind it. And it's like, it definitely felt more studio than indie. You know what I mean?
It was, yeah.
More polish, you know. They let it be goofy. You know, it's like, it's goofy like Ace Ventura's goofy. It's like in that same sort of, you know, lots of physical comedy, lots of, you know, stuff falling on people or big clouds of smoke or like, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like lots of like really like sort of over dramatic comedy
If
like
Cheech
that.
and Chong had a budget.
Yeah, well, if the Cheech and Chong movies, if CGI, if they had CGI, you know, in their time making those movies, like they would have been like, no, it's like a real CGI alien come out.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. So I definitely don't want to leave it as on a low note because, again, I love this movie. I think this movie definitely is not just a schlepped together movie. This one was done great, had some great acting, the writing. I think it was weird with timing. It was weird how they had to get their backing and probably had to bend over backwards to do certain things. This one to me is still definitely watchable, whether sober, stoned, or whatever. It's funny. It's got some good shit in it overall. So.
And it's like the made-for-TV version does not hold a candle.
No, not at all.
No, and that's what
Almost never watched that shit.
Yeah, so many people that saw it on Comedy Central, you got the edited version.
Oh, yeah.
Like horror
Minutes
movies
and
on
minutes
Saturday
cuts
afternoon
cut
on
out.
Fox or whatever. Like, you're not getting the same horror movie if you watch it, like, on the VHS, the DVD, or in the theater or whatever. So, but definitely, I'm glad we incorporated How High. It definitely touches, you know, gives us a little bit more to talk about because this is what we're doing. So I say good on How High, definitely a stoner movie.
I agree, stoner movie.
Yeah.
Full-on stoner movie. Like, it's an advocacy movie for weed. It absolutely is.
There you go.
It was the first one to introduce this different styles of weed before we even touched on it in reality.
See, this is one where I think if it was made closer to now, would have hit a lot better. Mm-hmm. And that's where I say that the only reason why I say it was a timing thing, because they talk a lot in this movie that is just like these days it's like, that's par for the course.
Do you
That's
think
the way
this
it should be.
movie like opened people, like legitimately opened people's minds to the fact that weed could be medicinal? Do you think it had that kind of a reach or touch?
I don't think it had that reach, but I think, you know, maybe for people that were more involved in marijuana at the time, they're probably like, oh, wow, it could do that. And then it evolved from there, but I don't think as a larger scale. There might have been a few people.
It helped, but I don't think it was at the forefront for, again, when you talk about mainstream is why I say that. But it was definitely a contender, an assist in getting that mind frame and the way people think about stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly why we included on this.
I
limited
see you
series.
guys' message underneath all that stuff, man. Right, Method Man. I see that.
Now that the jokes are going that way, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode on How High. So we do want to thank you, of course, Method Man, Redman. We know that to you guys specifically, whether or not you guys actually hear this. This was a great stepping stone into all the great stoner films and stoner movies or movies about stoners we've talked about. It does touch on some great points that are happening now. So, guys, thank you very much. Of course, Becky and Casey, so much weed talk. So don't forget Puff Puff Pass, a Blaze on the Bong. Join us as The Blunt Truth presents Seeing Stoned next time.